have to do both. So
do you mean like second language as in like I speak Korean at home, so would that work as
would work.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, we think it's very enlightening in a whole bunch of ways to see the world through the point of view of 2 different languages, and just to have that versatility. So we require that everybody study at least one second language, but if you're already on a second language, the third one can be anything you want.
Okay, next is Jason. And Jason, is this a new one or is it the pandemic question?
It's a pandemic question.
Oh, go to it. Let everyone know how you framed that question.
Great. How are you addressing COVID, and can you foresee a situation, or what would you foresee if the situation worsens?
Such a fair question. Emily?
Question. So we're handling COVID as carefully as we possibly can. There are a bunch of things that we can't do that we would love to do. We typically we sing together as an entire school community a lot, and we just haven't been able to do that, which is sort of heartbreaking because we're not allowed to sing. But otherwise, we have 600 acres, and most of the kids live here, so there's much less coming and going than there is in most schools. And we're doing a lot of testing, and we're doing a lot of really serious protocols about distancing and all that kind of stuff. And so we're in the so far so good stage. As you may know, the students are going home at Thanksgiving and doing the last 2 weeks of the term at home, so they don't have to, coming back and forth is always a problem. And coming back on the 1st of February. If things get worse, we'll do what we're told, because the state of Vermont is really good at this, and we respect the way the governor has done it and the health department has done it, and we're not trying to get out of line from that. That being said, their main focus is not boarding schools, because why would it be? And so they looked pretty hard at putting out guidance for the elementary schools and the public high schools and colleges. And several of us in boarding schools wrote, this being back in July, and said, what about us? What's our guidance? And they said, why don't you write us what you think it should be? So I actually got to draft what we thought the boarding school guidance from Vermont should be. So we understand it works well for us. I can imagine if things go really badly that we would go remote, but it would, we're not predicting that that's going to happen.
Jason, did that help?
That helps, and maybe I could talk some more offline. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions you have. That gets really detailed and gnarly, as you can imagine.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Kaya, you're next.
My question was, this is kind of going back to this, like when you guys were telling stories. My question was like, does it happen often when a teacher and a student get together and work on something that the student ends up learning something from the teacher and the teacher ends up learning something from the student?
Kate is our Dean of Faculty, and she's gonna address that one because she's gotten a chance to talk to so many teachers about that very experience. So Kate?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal, right? The ideal is we have a community of learners. Some of us have been learning for decades, and some of us are just figuring out how we learn and what we're interested in. But one of the reasons I love to work at Putney is there's a culture that lets you play and be interested and be a beginner at everything. So I'm not particularly mechanically minded or artsy, but since I've been here, I've learned how to do some fiber arts, and I've found myself in some bizarre situations in the barn. But the spirit of the place is that the world is a miraculous place, and let's figure out how to be in it and play in it together. So that was sort of philosophical, but I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for the question, Kaya.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Before I jump to Isadora, I see a question from Stephanie about basically, is it unusual for people to come in, say, as a repeat junior or a repeat sophomore? And on the admission side, I want to let you know, it's actually not at all unusual. When folks are looking at Putney, they're often drawn to the intellectual freedom that they'll have in our school. And oftentimes that's not something they can take advantage of, squeezing it into a single senior year, for example. So we've had over the past 8 years, more than a dozen, maybe 2 dozen kids come in and decide, I'm not gonna worry about the hierarchy of ages and grades. I'm gonna come in and do the program the way I wanna do it. And it actually has worked pretty well. Isadora, you had a question and I'm not sure where you are.
Hi. Thank you so much, but my question got answered. So,
do you want to make up a new one really quickly, or do you want to let it go?
I think I'm good to just listen. Thank you.
I'm gonna roll with it. Thank you. Luchik.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So I saw that fencing was actually one of the offerings at Putney, and I'm pretty serious about fencing myself. Is there a way, does Putney provide the, I guess, facility and the support for me to exceed as a fencer and excel in the sport, or is it more of a casual thing?
It's a great question. It has been a very active sport at different times, and Emily, I don't think it is active right now. Am I wrong?
Well, and it depends on what kind of fencing you're talking about.
I'm talking about modern fencing, like
We haven't done modern fencing in a really long time. If there's a student that is particularly interested in something that we have no access to here, we see what we can do about it. We were talking earlier about athletics and competitive sports, and we had a girl that was the fastest thing on 2 legs in running track, and we just didn't have that for her. So she went and competed with the local high school. And so we try really hard. But we don't have a community of fencers here at campus at this point. So we would just have to do some homework locally and see what was available and talk with you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Kiara.
So, what are the arts programs?
Say again, what?
The arts programs. Also, is there a drawing program? And how active is it?
I love this question.
I got this. Okay, so we have 2 pieces of the arts program. The arts at Putney are taken much more seriously than at most traditional academic schools, by which I mean they are as much a part of the academic program as math and English and history are. And you can't avoid them, and you can do quite a lot if you want to. We do have probably between 5 and 8 students a year that are heading to go off to art school of one kind or another. So we know how to help kids with their portfolios and all of that. But our art program is divided into 2 pieces. One is the academic art program, art classes, which meet during the academic day and involve plenty of making art, but they also involve a whole lot of learning about technique and critique and all of that. In the evenings, we probably, in the course of a term, run 30 arts classes that meet once or twice a week in the evenings, and every student takes art classes in the evenings. And these are purely experiential. You have to do it, but they're not about being an academic, they're about doing art. And they range from jewelry and blacksmithing and sculpture, metal sculpture, and drawing to book arts and Latin dance and hip hop, and I don't know, I'm missing a bunch of, there's a whole mess of them out there. And it's assumed that everybody at the school will make and do art seriously as a part of their life. You can work with Brian Courier and make shoes. Somebody was in two students were in my office the other day trying to talk me into something, and they were both in the middle of making shoes while they were doing it. So yes, there's a huge art program. The way we think about our art program is that there are 3 pre-professional art schools in the United States that are boarding schools. And students go there so that they don't have to do much of the rest of the academics. They can get rid of as much of the academics as possible in a small piece of time and then do art. And then there's the typical boarding schools that don't take arts very seriously. They're sort of an extra frill and add on. And we hold the piece of the pie between those two, right? Deeply, deeply serious about it. And yet it's not about competing with the kid that's doing the drawing next to you. Does that make sense? You're supposed to nod when I say that. Yeah, everybody's supposed to.
Yeah, thanks.
Adina, you're next.
I'm going to speak for Dina. She's recovering from a tonsillectomy.
Okay.
She's not talking. But it's the same question that Lucic asked, but about crew.
I'll take that one.
Oh, good. Go.
So we have rowing in the fall and the spring. It's more recreational in the spring and more competitive in the fall right now. We're primarily rowing. I'm coaching 2 days a week. And so we are rowing primarily singles, doubles, and quads. And it's really fun. We go down to the Connecticut River. We row in mostly king boats, which are beautiful wooden boats made here in Putney. And the beautiful thing about rowing in singles and doubles and quads is you can kind of take it as seriously as you want. So when I was a student here, rowing was a huge part of my life, and I actually was recruited to row in college and went all the way through college as a athlete. So definitely a really cool program that we have, and I would love to talk to you more in depth about it if you have follow-up questions.
Thanks, Brian. David, I'm going to come back to you because I want to be sure everybody has a chance to ask a first question. So Sophia?
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I understand that Putney is both a day school and a boarding school. So I was wondering how that has impacted the community. Like, has it caused any separation, or has everyone been pretty together, like, socially?
You mean during the pandemic?
Yeah.
I think it's both and Emily, I'm happy to take it, but you have to fix it if I screw it up.
Okay.
So Sophia, in the beginning of the year, we were, as you might imagine, super, super careful about making sure everyone was healthy and about keeping distance and masks, which we're still very careful about, but also about keeping kids separated. As time has gone on, I sense that there's a bit more of a relaxed experience, because the truth is, in southeastern Vermont, the day students, who are the kids going back to other settings and coming back in, are very respectful of the rules of not going outside to more dangerous places. And our population density is really low, which means we're very fortunate. For the most part, Vermont's been spared a lot of this. And so the kids aren't going into home places or the local gas station or supermarket. The virus isn't there. So I think we've had a bit more interaction socially and a bit less rigidity around that separation. But I may be wrong about that. Emily will fix that if I am.
No, I think that's true. It's something that we worried about a bunch with the pandemic. But in normal times, the day students are indistinguishable from their boarders. Their parents complain about never seeing them. Lots of the student leaders are day students, and they're really an integral part of the community. I would guess on the average Saturday night, and this is still true even now, probably 2/3 of the day students are here, because I don't know where you live, but there's not a lot else to do out there in our part of Vermont for teenagers. And we plan lots and lots of weekend events. So most of the day students are here, and they're very much part of everything here. We've had to work at it a little harder during the pandemic.
And we're hopeful that, the fall probably won't be perfectly normal, but it's going to be less abnormal, we think. Charlie, you had a question? And David, I promise I won't forget you. I just want to make sure everybody gets their first question. Charlie?
Hi, this is his mom's question, actually, and he wasn't sure, so I'm asking. I'm curious about the way the arts are an integral part of the whole experience and the academic as well. I'm curious about the schedule. You know, you're doing arts until 9 o'clock at night, which seems absolutely amazing. When are you doing your academic studies? Is it peppered through the day? Just a question about how the day.
That's a great question. I get too excited about this. I'm afraid I'll go on too much. Who wants to take this? Okay, I'm going to get excited and go on to it. So Charlie and Charlie's mom, the thing that's really cool about the schedule and the way time works at Putney is that we're inviting students to practice taking charge of their lives by taking charge of their lives. So the way we use time creates much less press. You're not scheduled class to class, backed up to one another, rushing from one thing to the next. And because we're in trimesters, we're not scheduling kids for 5 and 6 and 7 classes, and they're trying to squeeze their lives in, or their passions in, or their interest in art in. We've actually got kids taking 4 classes, maybe 3 classes in a given term. One of those classes might be an arts class, depending upon how they've navigated and negotiated their schedule over time. Maybe 2 of them are. There's room for arts in the afternoon in some ways, and definitely in the evening arts. But it's not as if you're doing evening arts every single night. You're doing them a night or 2, depending upon which one you're choosing. If you're crazy about it and you really want to do lots, Charlie, you might try to persuade us to let you go 3 or 4 nights. And the feedback you'll get, especially in the beginning, is, slow down, Tiger. We want to make sure you've got, your arms around your task and your time and your homework. But we'll let you overschedule and learn from the mistake if it's a mistake. And we'll also let ourselves be impressed by how capably you do it, because you really do love rocket science, pottery, fiber arts, whatever it might be. So you've got discretion about time during the day and the evenings, and then the independent study, the room for you to take up independent study in what we call project weeks, or what we call independent studies, or later on when you're a senior, what we call exhibitions, is just unheard of. There isn't another school where you're going to find the room to construct your program with the help and the input of teachers. You're going to see examples of it when you get here as a 9th or a 10th grader. You're going to see older students having already done this. And it's like being someone who really likes food and going to a buffet you've never been to before. It's magical. And the degree to which the adults at Putney are excited to work with students who have a passion and who develop a passion is also, in my 50,000 years in schools, really unusual. I hope that helps a little bit. Sylvia. Kate, sorry.
I just wanted to add a quick addendum. I think when you're trying to imagine what your life might be like at Putney, it's really easy to think about like classes are classes and arts classes are art classes, and that's not really how we operate. So in a progressive pedagogy where we're putting the student at the center, the student's learning is at the center. You might be reading a novel or studying something in physics and convince your teacher that the way you're going to demonstrate your understanding is through drawing or photography or a short film. And you're going to have that opportunity to say, this is how I want to create what I think I've learned. And so the boundaries are permeable.
Thank you, Kate. Brian, can you do 2 sentences on blacksmithing before we go to Sylvia?
Yeah, so we have an amazing metal studio here at Putney with all sorts of different welding. We have 2 forges as well, and I think 6 or 7 anvils. Blacksmithing meets 2 times a night, or 2 times a week as an evening. And it's a great opportunity to learn the basics, and then you can really dive deep into it as you progress through Putney. It's pretty cool.
And I asked Brian to do that because when Brian was a student at Putney, one of his projects was an eagle that's bigger than this, and it's right next to our pond, and it's extraordinary. And it's not like he came to the school with some degree in blacksmithing. And also, speaking of people who won't say things about themselves that are impressive, you may remember the stories, and Larry shared a story with us about a sense of uncertainty he had about sharing that his family benefited from the petroleum industry, even as he was really concerned about the environment. Well, he was sharing with you a bit of uncertainty in his early years at Putney. He's one of our co-heads of school right now, and he does a great job. And the trajectory that he made, that Brian made, and that students make can be really, really lovely and magical. And Sylvia, it's your turn. Where are you, Sylvia?
I'm right here.
Oh, hey.
I was just wondering, like, how many students are usually in a student house?
So we have a bunch of different dorms, and they actually range in size probably from a dozen kids to mid-30s. None of them look alike. They're all filled with character and warmth. Some of them have extraordinary views. Some of them have different views. Michael, what am I missing? Michael used to be in charge of the residential side.
Yeah, you sort of hit the nail on the head. They're all different. They all have their own culture. And 10 to 30 students in each dorm is approximately what they are. And there's families living there. And so there's faculty members that live there. Many of the faculty members have pets and critters that live there. So there's lots of dogs wandering around campus.
Some of them have young children.
Oh, and many have young children who suddenly think that all the kids in their dorm are their older brothers and sisters.
And they kind of are.
And they very much are.
Sylvia, does that help, or was that not what you were trying to get at?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, David, back to you. Where are you, David?
Oops, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So now, obviously, Putney gives students empowers them to pursue their own passions, which is great. Requirements isn't the first word that comes to mind. Yet I heard Emily refer to a language requirement and also an effective arts requirement. So I'm wondering what else, like what are the requirements? And maybe that's too broad a question versus electives.
Emily's got this, but please send them to the view book when you're done with your answer.
Okay. Very quickly, we have a portfolio-based system, which means that we are interested in what kids know and are able to do. And there are 7 through lines that cover all of the basic areas of scholarship, so inquiry and research and argumentation and literacy and communication and ethical, cultural, and social justice perspectives, and I've forgotten the rest of them. And then each of the academic fields has its own specific requirements. What kind of math do you have to prove you actually know and understand and can use for something? And so students, when they're doing work that models that they have mastered what's in the Putney core, put it in their portfolio. So we're not interested in kids getting on a conveyor belt and having to do everything in the same order that every other kid in the class is doing it. We're interested in them really having a core knowledge of each of the academic subjects so that they are able to continue whichever direction they want to go in the world. It seems fitting that when we actually started designing this Putney core, which is about 10 years ago now, our sort of mantra was, when we're educating people, we have to remember that they're going to vote in our country, right? So, it's a little history, a little science, that kind of stuff. It seems really good. So, yeah, it's not that we don't have requirements. They're pretty serious, but they're also able to be met in a variety of different ways. Our kids also come out knowing what they know. They didn't just take the test and then that was done with it. They can explain what it is that they know. I can give you an example. Earlier today, this morning, a freshman came in to see me to ask if I would sponsor his upcoming project. And he wants to do history, and he wants to do a comparison of the sort of social contract in the Roman Empire and the social contract in an American democracy. And I went, okay, that sounds really cool. And it was fine for me that it's been a long time since I did Roman history. I don't have to teach him Roman history. He's going to go and learn that, or he knows a lot about it already. My job is to help him figure out how to analyze and do the research and put it together in a coherent work of scholarship. So we started off looking at a couple of the rubrics from the Putney Core. We looked at inquiry and research, and we looked at argumentation. And as he writes his proposal, which will have to go to the history department for that 10 days of time that he's going to work on it, that's all he's going to have to do for those 10 days, he can put into his proposal what his academic goals are in terms of inquiry and research and in terms of argumentation, right? So that's how we structure what it is you have to come out here knowing and being able to do. So it's not about sort of seat time, you have to take 4 English classes. No, you have to learn how to write decently, that kind of thing. Does that help you?
Definitely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We do try to capture it in a written and graphic form in a part of our view book called the curriculum. We're still struggling with articulating it clearly, but it's so cool to watch students animate it from the ideas that we're clear about. It's lovely. Are there any?
There's something else that came up in my mind when Brian was talking about blacksmithing that I think nobody's asked a specific question about, but this is the truth in advertising part for the parents, so listen carefully. We do let them make knives in blacksmithing, and we do let them use chainsaws in the woods, and we do let them ride tractors when they've learned how to do it, right? We don't just tell them to learn it by trial and error if it happens to be maybe dangerous, right? But our premise is that teenagers are intelligent, competent people that should be able to be trusted, right? And every year when the parents come and at the end of a project week, it's open house and everybody can come and look what everybody else has made. And every year at least one parent says, knives, they're allowed to make knives, so I'm telling you that up front. But I think it's really important that parents understand that we don't just protect kids in bubble wrap all the time. We let them try stuff. We actually know from our insurance company, which is the same insurance company all the other schools use, that we have fewer accidents than almost any school out there, right? And it's because our kids know that this is theirs to figure out how to do well, rather than it must be safe because they're letting me do it, right? So, but it's worth you knowing that and sitting with it and then asking us lots of questions about what does that really mean before you actually send your kid here.
That's actually a wonderful, thank you for doing that, because
but I get that off my chest.
And it's also, that's a true statement about our entire educational program, not just the bits that are sharp. Anoop, you had a question and now you get to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Please say your name out loud.
My name's Anouk.
Darn it, I'm so sorry, but thank you. Okay, what's your question, Anouk?
So I was wanting to know if you have a photography class option, and if you do, is it digital or can you do developing film?
That's so cool. What a great question. We have some phenomenal photography going on campus. It happens in classes, it happens in evening arts, it happens digitally, and it happens in a dark room. And the person who leads our art program used to be a photographer at Life magazine, among other things. And she's just, bluntly, she's extraordinary. Anybody else want to add anything from the Putney side about photography, or Lynn?
I would just add that right now our darkroom is actually closed with COVID. So it's all digital, but they're doing some really amazing stuff where they're taking photos and then printing the negative out really large and then doing cyanotypes with the negatives. And it's so cool to see the different skills that are being worked on and different techniques due to not being able to be in close corridors and using chemicals the way that the classes often do.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Hi, KK. Hadn't seen you before. Hey, Allison.
I think Nat also has a question.
Nat, where are you?
Hi there. Yep. Sorry, my son has run away to do creative things on Saturday. But some of you spoken to him. Two quick questions. One is following on Anouk. Other kinds of digital design digital arts, digital design. I'm curious if there's, all the hands-on stuff is amazing and really important to us, but also I'm curious about graphic design and digital design, whether that's also available or potential.
And was there a second one as well?
The thing was just curious, you said you're on trimesters and you're not starting this year till February. How late are you going to be going? I was just curious.
That's a fair question. We collect.
It doesn't apply to everybody. I'm just curious. I'm like, yeah, you guys could be there a long time. But
I'm going to go second first. We're collapsing our spring break. We'll figure out a way to give them rest, but they won't leave. So we're going right until the beginning of June, which for us is a bit late. And I actually don't know the answer on the digital, and I wonder if one of the other faculty do, about the digital program about digital and graphics. Kate, Emily, Michael, Brian, Jessa?
We always teach animation, and we teach, in the science department does a whole lot of CAD design stuff over there. And we've got 4, maybe 5 3D printers and one of those laser things. And so they do a lot of designing in there. So there's a lot of digital stuff going on. And some of it is in classes and a lot of it is just what kids happen to be doing. There's certainly students that think that classes get in the way of their work, but yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
And students have worked with our marketing department in years past to do various graphic design projects. There was a student who wanted to promote her artwork, and so worked with our marketing director to build a website and to build her portfolio and share all of that online. So definitely in project weeks.
And our college counselor, Jen DeMaison, who's about to wave right now, lets me know that we've gotten a bunch of graphic designs for project weeks, actually a number of them, which is good. How are you guys doing? Are there any other questions that feel fertile, present, pressing, ask now before we leave kind of questions? Okay, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I want to let you know, because you're living in a world that has so much virtual stuff going on, that we have programming happening almost every week, and students especially. If you guys are intrigued to find out how much responsibility you can take in your community in high school, come check out one of our Wednesday afternoon leadership panels. The kids who run different parts of the school basically tell you a little bit about themselves, and then they field any questions that you might have. We've got 4 or 5 alums on an alum panel next Thursday, which is going to be really cool, and our heads of school are on a panel next Wednesday. After Thanksgiving, we've got our international ambassadors and other groups that I'm forgetting. But there's a lot of stuff going on. This Laramie Project thing, you can see it streaming, and it's going to be really well done that Sunday before Thanksgiving. Who doesn't want to watch a politically charged drama about pain and suffering? I know I do. Come on, it's going to be really well done, and it's a movie. It really is a moving show. I can't wait to see it. Anyway, if you guys have any other questions at all, and especially if we haven't already been in touch with one another, I've popped my email into the chat. Please be in touch. I'll send out a note that says, give us feedback. But really what we want to be sure of is we're providing you with whatever information and whatever connections would be useful to you so that you really can learn this place, because that's half the battle. If you like what you see, you're already probably a Putney person. Thank you for your time. I think we're going to sign off. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, Sarah.
Oh, hi. Sarah had to go somewhere.
I'm sorry, Dawn. I did that the last time, too.
That's okay. Should we pick another date then instead of Monday?
No, I sent you a note right before. Monday's good. I just got to get, there's a couple items that are up in the air. It's it looks like 1:45 is when we'll start, and I'll get you out of there by 3:15. And
Great, thank you. I just turned my phone off during the session, so I just didn't see it.
Oh, I was late on that. And I will send you another note that's more specific about which parts you should be a part of and which parts you should let her be a part of. Okay.
Perfect. We're both excited about Putney. So thank you for your help. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, Jane, are you still on? Okay, I'm gonna call it. Michael, thank you.
Yep. See you, boss.
Thanks so much for your help.